Hi, and welcome to part 5 of The Naked Truth. This one is going to cover how to cut government spending. In other words, we need to get the budget down into a reasonable range. As I stated in part 1, when I was listing the items, budget cutting, I had said that I could come up with a 20 to 25% cut in government spending immediately. How? First of all, let's put all government employees, federal government employees, on a 32-hour work week. That's right, that is an immediate 20% cost in salaries and wages. Agency heads would have to consider their schedules so that some people would work Monday through Thursdays and others would work Tuesdays through Fridays to continue to serve the public. The only exceptions to this would be the President and his highly paid staff, Congress and their highly paid staff, the Supreme Court, and of course our soldiers in combat who don't have regular work hours. The second part would be a cut in wages for federal employees. I would suggest that all federal employees from GS-12 and up and equivalent salary ranges and other salary bases in government get a 10% cut in wages, and everybody from GS-11 down get a 5% cut in wages. Again, the only exception to this would be our soldiers in combat who aren't highly paid anyhow, but they're sacrificing their lives for us. That would add some more. Now, that's not going to mean a total of 20 to 25% cut in government spending. It's just in government spending on wages and salaries. The other thing is that there's been a lot of rumor about whether government employees are on Social Security or not, and I've looked on the internet and it's confusing. You hear one thing on one site and you hear another thing on another site. So let's just say all government employees will go on the same Social Security system as all private citizens do. So if they do have a special retirement package that isn't available to us, that will end and they will contribute to Social Security. Also, government employees should be required to contribute to their health benefits the same as any private citizen does. I would recommend 50%. When you combine all these cuts, that's a substantial amount of money being saved, and that's one way of cutting federal spending. Another area where we can cut government spending is in subsidies. We have way too many subsidies of all kinds of groups and individuals and corporations and various things like that. The only way to be fair is to cut all subsidies across the board, period. We're subsidizing cotton, we're subsidizing peanuts, we're subsidizing corn, and that is my biggest beef right there. Making ethanol from corn, not only does that raise prices for corn for the poor folks, but it's been proven that ethanol does not reduce CO2 emissions into the air. And in fact, it actually probably contributes more to it when you consider the entire process of growing the corn all the way to distributing it to your gas station. And it's not easy on your car either. And then we have all kinds of other subsidies to private individuals, to private organizations. Let's cut all subsidies for the next 2 years and see what the effect is. And then if we find a sector of the economy that does need subsidies, that benefits the vast majority, which means better than 70–80% of us, then let's go ahead and subsidize it. But until we can prove that, let's cut all subsidies. Okay, another area where we can cut government spending is in duplication of services. With all the different agencies we have, many of them, a lot of them, provide the same service to similar people or various people throughout the country. Let's find out what those services are, consolidate all of them into one agency and get rid of all the overhead that's on the rest of them. That will save a considerable amount of money and time and effort, and reduce the confusion to this American citizens who's trying to take advantage of some of those services. Another area where we can cut is to get rid of a lot of the agencies and sub-agencies that are a result of laws that were passed in the past for special interests, for bureaucracies, and for various reasons that are unnecessary and don't exist anymore. Let's seek those out and get rid of those. If we do get tax reform that I suggested in items 3 and 4, we can cut over half of the IRS employees and get rid of that substantial amount. That is a result of our tax laws. There are many other areas where we can go through. I can't list them all, there's just too many of them, but we need to seek those out and we need to get rid of those agencies. Another area where we can cut is in entitlement programs. These are the kind of government programs that provide individuals with personal financial benefits or sometimes special government provided goods or services, to which an indefinite but usually rather large number of potential beneficiaries have a legal right, enforceable in court if necessary, when they meet eligibility conditions that are specified by the standing law that authorizes the program. The beneficiaries of entitlement programs are normally individual citizens or residents, but sometimes organizations such as business corporations, local governments, or even political parties may have a similar special entitlements under certain programs. The most important aspect or examples of entitlement programs are at the federal level in the United States would include Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, most Veteran Administration programs, federal employee and military retirement plans, unemployment compensation, food stamps, and agricultural price support programs. Now, one of the reasons there are so many people in these entitlement programs, and this is not discussed out openly, is that a lot of government laws and regulations and etc. foster the welfare environment. They hurt businesses, so they don't provide jobs. They make people dependent on government programs. I mean, it's easier to receive a check than it is to work for it, and that's not good for this country. We need people who are willing to work, who have the responsibility of working for their general welfare themselves rather than depending on others to provide it for them. And we need people who are responsible to take care of their health and being sensible, not using drugs, etc. But we continue to support these people that are doing that with these entitlement programs. Now, some of those that I mentioned, such as Social Security or Medicare or Veterans Entitlement Programs, etc., are not fully entitlement programs. I mean, we all pay into the Social Security system, so we're entitled to getting the compensation from it at the end, so technically that's not an entitlement, that's just getting back what we put into it. Same with many of the other ones. But what has happened over the years is that Congress, in their infinite wisdom, has decided, well, we can use Social Security for many other things besides a safety net for people when they retire. And those other benefits that they get are entitlement programs. And they shouldn't have rated the Social Security system for that. The same with Medicare, the same with many other items in there. We need to look at each of those programs and cut out the wasteful spending, cut the budget on them, and reduce spending on them. If we follow up with the proposed tax reform that I mentioned for 3 and 4, we can do that. We'll get more income coming in because of that, and the corporations will start moving back in this country, providing more jobs. Once we get that, this economy will boom and entitlement programs can start disappearing. We need to understand that. Another area where we can cut is in pork barrel spending. Now, if we go through with what I stated in item 1, term limits, we will start reducing that. Oh, and in item 2 also, changing the way Congress works, we will eliminate most of that. In fact, we should eliminate all of it. But pork barrel spending just adds and adds and adds, and some of it ends up being entitlement programs, and some of it is special interests only. We need to look at all the spending that Congress is putting out there and get rid of the stuff that is for special interests or bureaucratic spending that does not benefit better than 80 or 90% of our population. Now, another area where many people mention that we should be able to cut spending is in military spending, and I agree to a certain extent, but there's several problems involved with that, and one of them is our national security. You know, there's an old saying that to ensure peace you've got to be ready to defend it, and if we start shutting down factories that produce our munitions, factories that produce our military hardware, and reduce R&D on that, other countries may take advantage of that, and at some point in the future we may fall behind or we may be vulnerable. So this is an area where I'm sure we can cut excessive spending, especially when you have military contracts that overrun. We need to find out how to stop that. You know, when you get a bid in from a major company and then all of a sudden they require more money to finish the project, we need to find out why. Somebody needs to pay for that, and it shouldn't be the American citizen. Part of our capitalist economy is competition, and through competition the people that do a poor job or inefficient job usually are weeded out. But because of politics and special interests influencing Congress, many times senator or representatives trying to get business into his state, and he'll make promises to a certain company or you know, who are friends, and they're not the best prospect for doing our military spending. We need to change that. We need to look at military spending not from the perspective of cutting the entire military budget, reducing, you know, our forces, eliminating certain hardware, but look at the fraud and the inefficiencies and everything else that's in there, and maintain a strong military presence, but cut the costs as much as we can through that factor alone. There are many other areas in the federal government where we can cut spending and reduce expenses and stuff like that. The Federal Reserve is one area where we need to take a good hard look at it. I can't even begin to go into it with you because it is so damn complicated, and it would take more than 15 minutes just to discuss. Just know that the Federal Reserve is not a government agency. It's an independent quasi-government corporation that sets interest rates, controlled by the banks of this country, who get all the interest payments of it. I personally believe that if we could get the Federal Reserve under congressional control, all those interest payments could come into the federal treasury instead of to the banks, and would be a substantial amount of income to cut our budget, to pay for our government bureaucracy. There are many other areas I'm sure you people out there are aware of that could use some cutting, some hard looking at. We just need to get it taken. We need to identify those and work on getting those done. Other than that, it's just going to take some good hard work by Congress to do this, get it done, and make some very, very hard decisions, but they have to be made, and let's do it. Okay, that's the end of part 5. At the beginning of the next part 6, I'll go into education and also into healthcare. Thank you for listening, and if you like this, please pass it on. Have a good day.